Welcome to First Mover, your first global look at today's action in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset space. Joining me are my co-host, CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Capital Markets, as well as Executive Director of Global Content, Emily Parker. Good morning, Emily and Lawrence.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Yeah. Let's check in quickly on Bitcoin right now. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index currently at $40,392. Bitcoin is up almost 4% over the past 24 hours. The CoinDesk Ether price ETX index at 2673. ETH also climbing about 4.8%. And the DFX CoinDesk DeFi index is at 229, also rising almost 5%. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as a leader in crypto news, events, and data. All right, so it is Fed Day, widely expected to see a 25 basis point rate hike by Jerome Powell, Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Also, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky set to address U.S. lawmakers in a virtual speech as Kyiv and several other cities in Ukraine continue to be blasted by heavy shelling by Russia. Emily, big news day.
Yes, there's a lot going on for sure. I mean, at least on the rate hike front, this is something that has been anticipated for a long time in the crypto world. So the question really is this priced in or not, or are we going to see an impact on the market?
Yeah, well, we've been seeing a lot of volatility. There was a sharp jump in Bitcoin from about 39,000 to almost 42,000 for the day. Look at that spike there. Yeah. Lawrence, what's behind that?
Well, the folks at Crypto Quant noted that some Bitcoins actually left Kraken right before the spike. And of course, we have what's going on in Asia. The Chinese government has signaled that they're willing to come in and to support their markets. And they're having a lot of problems between the real estate market, which is going to have problems with some of its debt coming due, and with with some of the tech sector companies and the like. And also, remember, they're getting involved with Russia. Russia's reaching out to them saying, hey, help with our war in Ukraine. They may be affected by sanctions from the West. That could hurt their stocks. So the Chinese government said, hey, we're going to help you out. And you know what? That created a lot of rallying in stocks in China and in Asia. And that may have translated over into crypto.
Interesting. Let's dive further with our markets guest.
The Crypto Markets Update is brought to you by KuCoin, the best place to find the next crypto gem.
As Christine was saying just before, it is Fed Day, and everyone's expecting a 25 basis point increase in the Fed funds rate. So joining us now to discuss is Ben Emons. He's Managing Director of Global Macro Strategy at Medley Global Advisors. Good morning, Ben. How are you?
Good morning, Lawrence. Good to see you, and thanks for having us.
Of course. Thanks for coming on. So let's get right to it. The yield curve, it's flattening in the bond market, right? The treasuries are all flattening in yields. That's usually a warning sign for recession. At the same time, we're looking at inflation now at about 7.5%. So did the Fed take too long to raise rates?
On that basis, you could say yes, because the market is really pricing in that the Fed would have to go, we say, restrictive. Right? It would move rates up to what they say is a neutral rate. And it sounds a bit technical, but if you think about you have to bring rates up to such level that you can then really affect inflation, but you would also affect the economy. And that's what the markets are being jittery about. And the recent volatility in equities had a lot to do with that. It was not just the Ukraine story and the impact that has on inflation, but really then market taking that to, well, inflation gets too high, the Fed has to move faster, and it hasn't done anything just yet. So this is a long-awaited lift-off in rates. And now the question is how much they're going to go from here, how fast, and that's what everybody will be watching today.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're expecting how many rate hikes? Like 9. When do we start seeing the full effect of these rate hikes to really kick in?
Well, there's a few ways to think about that. So yes, it's indeed about 9 hikes. That's by the middle of to late next year priced in. And you would want to see that through three channels. One is through the dollar, right, that has been strengthening since the middle of last year, but not really to such extent that is what we call a surge in the dollar. If that were to happen, then that could meaningfully impact the second channel, which is the commodity markets, which, as we now know, are haywired because of the Ukraine conflict. A stronger dollar will affect commodity prices to the downside. And then lastly, of course, it's through what we say financial conditions, which is a broad term for equity, bond markets, and credit markets. Those financial conditions would then tighten as the Fed raises rates. That too has happened, but not so significantly as we've seen in previous crisis episodes. So there's still some way to go here before we can truly see the impact from these rate hikes coming through. But that will happen is likely, especially if they signal today that they're willing to take Fed rate hikes really further out and into the future.
And do you have a sense of how this will all impact the crypto markets? We've been seeing a lot of volatility.
Yeah, it will certainly impact that market too. Some people have likened it to that the Fed liquidity is directly related to what's going on in crypto. That may be true. I think it's also to do with that the correlation of crypto and the equity market has picked up significantly since last year because more and more companies are using crypto as a service or as an asset on their balance sheet. So therefore that correlation is there. So you could say that, yes, if the Fed raises rates and tightens those financial conditions, which includes lower equity prices, then it will affect crypto as well. I think that's the way to think about it.
So, welcome to the show. But just in terms of affecting crypto, so the crypto world has been, and the larger financial world in general, has been talking about these rate hikes kind of forever, right? I mean, they've been anticipated for a long time. And we've already seen headlines of the crypto markets reacting to these anticipated rate hikes. So the question is we know that we assume that there's some sort of impact, but has that impact already happened? To what degree is it already priced in? And to what degree do you think that the market could react anew to whatever happens?
I think it's a fair point to say that there has been an anticipation that has led to a pricing in of the effect of rate hikes. So if you really think about when Bitcoin hit sort of a $65,000 about high, and we went all the way down below 30,000, that does show that there's that sort of path priced in of what the first, let's say, part of the rate hike cycle would mean for asset prices. Same thing with the S&P, corrected about 12% from the high in November of last year. So there is some pricing in, but not entirely. And that has to do much with the economy. We have slowed down, but we're by far not in any kind of recession scenario. We have a lot of inflation. Inflation will likely go higher. And that's, I think, what the market will look at next. Like if we're going to see more higher prints in inflation, the Fed will have to follow through with these rate hikes quicker. And that, I think, is not priced in, even though the number of rate hikes looks like a lot, like 9, but the pace of rate hikes is still much slower. There will be just a few hikes priced in by next year. Will that change as the Fed signals like we're ready to do this faster? I think that's not priced in.
So could one of the methods by which you could go faster, and of course it's sitting on $9 trillion in debt, in assets rather, that it has on its balance sheet, our U.S. debt. So is it possible they might flood the market or at least add some or sell back the assets on its balance sheet if it needed to accelerate the rate hikes as another tool in its war chest? Or are they going to just hold on to that $9 trillion for forever?
I think it's a really important point, Lawrence, because if you look at the balance sheet from the Fed today, it's indeed $9 trillion. It holds about $4.5 trillion of treasuries and something about $3 to $4 trillion of mortgage-backed securities. But then on top of it is what they call reverse repos, which is something like $1.5 trillion. That's the first part of the balance sheet they may look to take down, because that's nothing else than just simply a collateralized transaction with money market funds and other entities. They take that liquidity down and then bring down the side of the asset side as well. I think that's been communicated by the Fed several times now, about $1.5 trillion or so that they're looking to reduce the balance sheet by. But that actually isn't really bringing the balance sheet to a level where monetary policy is tightening further, because those reverse repos are as I said, just collateralized transaction. It really comes down to if the reserves in the system that the Fed has created are going to be reduced. In 2018, we had that effect on markets when that was happening. And that will still, I think, take some time before that comes through. So look for the balance sheet to be reduced by $1.5 trillion or so, but mostly by those reverse repos at first before the reserves will be shrunk.
So what do you expect today that the rest of the market isn't expecting? Or do you think that the market is pretty much on target here?
Yeah, the market's on target, and I'm smiling actually because, it's an interesting point too that, what's now really not expected here. Everybody knows that they're going to lift off. People will look at the projections for GDP and inflation and the dot plot, as they call it, the trajectory for interest rates. The expectation is that the Fed will move all of that up and will move inflation projections up. So what could be the surprise there? Yeah, the Fed shows a more aggressive rate hike path in the future, shows that it's much more concerned about rising inflation than what's being communicated before. I think those are elements of surprise, as well as that the willingness to go faster with rate hikes in the future by overemphasizing that, not just 50 basis point rate hike, but just simply taking quicker steps to get back to the so-called neutral rate. That will be scrutinized by markets, and that could surprise markets if there's language from Powell come that way. And we know how he can be communicating. He can be very pragmatic, so we do have to be ready that he may surprise markets.
All right. We'll wrap it there. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your insights in the market. Very much looking forward to what happens on Fed Day. Right, that was Medley Global Advisors Managing Director Ben Emons. All right, coming up, Ukrainian officials are asking crypto firms to ban Russian users. Should they? Is that even possible? We'll discuss with DeFi platform Aave. Also, the Federal Reserve is expected to announce its rate hike decision today at 2 o'clock Eastern. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell will then hold a news conference at 2:30. CoinDesk TV will carry the news conference live on CoinDesk.com, followed by analysis on all about Bitcoin.
What's up, everybody? This is Spencer Dinwiddie.
And I'm Solo Cisse.
And this is New Money, brought to you by CoinDesk.
All I hear, go get the money. So I go get it. Hate means I do something right. So I'ma let him. Yeah, I'ma let him. Yeah, I'ma let him. I hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I'ma let him.
What we'll see is money not only being exchanged for this digital currency, but the frictionless movement across borders. It's gonna be able to flow as easy as a text message.
Staying true to yourself, right? Like, you've always been true to yourself.
I just want to share that with everybody. You could be yourself in full capacity.
It's our duty to take our visions and be fearless in our pursuit.
Be my most authentic self and show people that, look, I'm an athlete, and yes, I'm also a part of the LGBT community.
My goal is to have, my own NFT, my own entire IP, like my own everything.
How do you think, blockchain and crypto impacts the way you think about it?
I think everyone has some sort of how'd you get into Bitcoin? It's like asking someone if they smoke. It's like, yo.
Embracing where the world is going. And when the whole world shut down, we saw just how important tech was.
It was more so of my style and the foods that I cooked that kind of pushed me. I wanted to live the lifestyle of an athlete or an artist while doing what I love.
Having that open mind, having that flexibility just allows you to be of so much more service to, youth or society in general.
Gamers, maybe it's because you guys just hustle different.
Anything you want to be great at, you got to put hours and hours in every single day.
Checking in on Bitcoin, the CoinDesk Bitcoin price XVX index at $40,392. Bitcoin is up about 3.9% over the past 24 hours. The CoinDesk Ether price ETX index at 2673. ETH climbing about 4.8%. The DFX CoinDesk DeFi index is at 229. DeFi also rising almost 5% for the day. All right, Western banks, major financial institutions, and corporations are cutting off services to Russian customers following Russia's invasion in Ukraine, but many crypto companies are resisting such blanket bans. Joining us now to discuss is Rebecca Rettig, General Counsel at DeFi platform Aave. Welcome, Rebecca. Thanks for joining us. So Ukrainian officials are calling on crypto firms to cut off access to Russian users. What's your position on such a request? Is that even possible for a DeFi platform?
So just as a point of clarification, I'm general counsel for the Aave company. So we're a software development company. But as far as the DeFi platform goes, the Office of Foreign Asset Control, or OFAC, put out guidance earlier this year on how DeFi platforms or other actors in the crypto space should be thinking about sanctions and how to apply them strategically, because the way that banks and other traditional financial actors in the space can implement sanctions is slightly different when it comes to DeFi and completely decentralized technology. So as long as there's adherence to those types of mechanisms put forth by OFAC, such as wallet monitoring and the like, and as long as their adherence to the letter of what the sanctions require, I think that's what we can ask for from crypto companies. As far as centralized crypto actors, they are putting in place various controls, including through KYC, to ensure that they are complying with the sanctions as they exist to date and as they evolve.
Right. So some crypto exchanges are complying with sanctions by banning access of services to certain individuals, such as Russian oligarchs. So, are other crypto firms able to avoid that as well?
It depends. So yesterday, Matcha put in place, which is a DEX or a DeFi platform, put in place a blanket ban on Russian transactions. They changed it later to say that there were just certain countries that were restricted. But certain software development companies that host centralized user interfaces or otherwise have the ability to do these types of large-scale blocks are considering it and putting different mechanisms in place to ensure that the bans are occurring. So it is possible, but it just depends on whether you are hosting some centralized access point to a DeFi protocol.
So this all raises kind of a larger question, because there's already a lot of nervousness in Washington about DeFi, to the extent that anyone in Washington understands what DeFi is. Those people are nervous. And they're nervous because of these exact reasons, right? Like, it's hard. And, there's this idea of crypto being this like dark money, and DeFi is even harder to control. So with all this talk now about crypto potentially, being a tool to get around sanctions, do you think there will be increased regulatory pressure on DeFi specifically?
Well, I think that the president's executive order from last week is a really good beacon of hope in terms of what's going to happen with respect to regulators and policymakers and how they're going to interact with stakeholders in the crypto space, including in the decentralized finance world. It was certainly alluded to that there was a recognition of DeFi, and that the president's EO last week wanted the various agencies listed in the executive order, and it was pretty wide scale, from Treasury to Homeland Security, to be engaging with stakeholders to put forward these reports. As far as whether crypto or DeFi is actually being used with respect to the evasion of sanctions, we've seen little to no evidence of that at all. And I think that, as we've seen in the past, and given prior work, I've seen that law enforcement is able to track crypto transactions, including through DeFi protocols, much more closely given the transparency of the system. And so I don't see this as a particularly attractive place for users to evade sanctions in any way, shape, or form. There is definitely scrutiny. We have seen statements made by actors in Washington to date about needing to crack down. I think there is going to be positive engagement in terms of trying to understand whether and how this is actually being used. But I think the president's EO will continue to be a positive light in terms of how agencies and policymakers are going to engage with the crypto community.
Do we have a sense of how DeFi platforms are being used during times of war by Ukraine, by Russian users?
We've seen really positive use of crypto with respect to Ukraine. There has been significant fundraising efforts for Ukraine. There's also a lot of information about blockchain-based tools being used to assist Ukraine in ensuring that its files and other critical information is being stored and stored immutably so that it cannot be destroyed during the war in any way, shape, or form. So I actually think crypto has been very positive during the war with Ukraine in terms of supporting the Ukrainians, both financially and from a structural perspective.
Meanwhile, in the EU, the parliament recently voted on an EU crypto bill, MiCA, I believe it's called. And I wonder, have you had a chance to go through the regulatory framework that they're proposing, and what are your thoughts on how the EU is developing crypto frameworks for crypto frameworks?
So I am engaging with policymakers in the EU and in the US, and the policymakers that I've spoken to in the EU want to make sure that the European Union is a positive place for the crypto community to innovate and to work and to feel that, one, there is some clarity in regulation and how it works, and two, to be able to then come there and continue to build. I think that MiCA is a good first step. They did originally propose a proof of work ban, which would have set to ban any cryptocurrency that is on a POW network. So that includes Bitcoin and Ethereum as it is today. That was luckily removed at the very last minute before the vote, because that would have signaled, I think, a very negative point for innovation, given the import of Bitcoin and Ethereum and other POW cryptocurrencies or crypto assets in this space. But I do believe that the EU and the European Commission is looking to try to push crypto regulation forward, and this is a good first step. And just to go back to the point that you asked about earlier with respect to DeFi, MiCA is intended to at least carve out DeFi from that set of regulation. And I know just from my engagement that they are looking to think about how to build evolving and innovative regulation so that it does accommodate DeFi while also protecting consumers and ensuring that there is safety in the financial markets.
Interesting. Definitely continue to monitor how DeFi is regulated by various jurisdictions. Rebecca, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, that was Aave Company General Counsel Rebecca Rettig. Coming up, checking in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day. Also, we'll hear from Metta World Peace on his latest NFT sneaker series. Welcome back. Time to check in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day, who is also the editor of CoinDesk's The State of Crypto newsletter. Good morning, Nick. Oh, you're in the office. So, Nick, tell us, it's Fed Day, big day.
Yeah, good morning. We're going to hear the Fed Reserve President Chairman Jerome Powell talk about the rate hike, the anticipated rate hike, I should say, at 2:30 afternoon in Eastern time today. Honestly, I'm not sure what else to say, and I think everyone's been expecting this. The invasion of Ukraine is continuing to throw markets into haylock, and we're starting to see crypto markets also use some really weird stuff, to use a scientific term. I don't know if people are confident in how exactly the Fed might approach this, though.
And Nick, I believe we're also supposed to hear from the Senate Banking Committee this week as well, right?
Yeah, so this is me correcting myself from yesterday. Yesterday, I said that the House Financial Services Committee is holding a CBDC hearing this week. That is incorrect. That hearing will be at the end of March. This week, we're going to hear the Senate Banking Committee talk about the role of digital assets in illicit finance. And while the title might sound a bit ominous to the crypto crowd, the witness list is honestly very solid. It's you have Chainalysis, Jonathan Levin. You have Michael Mosier, formerly of FinCEN, formerly of Chainalysis, currently at Espresso. You have Shane Stansberry, a Duke University professor, distinguished fellow, who's a former cybercrime prosecutor. So you have a pretty solid panel of really experts in digital crimes, and presumably this is going to be a more fact-finding kind of focused hearing. The final witness is all going to be Michael Jabanian of Kuna Exchange from Ukraine. So I imagine we're also going to be talking a little bit about sanctions evasion, and just kind of how that whole situation is playing out.
Yeah, it's been great to hear from Michael Jabanian on First Mover earlier in the month. So we'll see what he has to say to U.S. lawmakers. Nick, thank you for the update. That was CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Policy and Regulation, Nick Day. Don't forget to sign up for the State of Crypto newsletter on CoinDesk.com.
The CoinDesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
Blank Souls, a decentralized sneaker company, has announced a partnership with former NBA champion Metta Artest, also known as Metta World Peace and formerly Ron Artest, and is now launching a line of limited edition NFTs and physical sneakers on the Solana blockchain called Metta Design Souls. Joining us now to discuss is Metta Artest. Welcome.
How you doing? How's everything going?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Hope I got all those
That's
details
great, yeah.
right. So this is an interesting project. So let's just get right into it. So let's talk about like the sneaker problem that you are addressing here. So, as I understand, it has a lot to do with just like inflated prices, like centralized control by the big brands. But can you just spell out for us, like what exactly the problem is here?
Well, I think just having an opportunity as an athlete to launch your own shoe. We got a lot of great shoes out there. And, with the Kobe's or LeBrons or the Jordans or, whatever the case may be. And I think there's a group of players out there that have the ability to launch their own shoe. And I think Blank Souls gives me the ability to launch my own shoe, something I always wanted to do, and have a good time with it. We love the Web3 and, NFT technology. And I think it's really cool that every, NFT that someone purchases from Blank Souls in regards to these shoes, they'll receive one. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. So I guess my question just about like sort of the NFT thing. So we have so many like celebrities and athletes like launching NFTs. What is it about your NFT other than like the coolness of it, which is clearly, part of it, but like what exactly like is the thinking behind it? Like, is there anything that like, is there a reason specifically you want to do an NFT as opposed to something else?
Yeah, it's a reason because one, I have a basketball app. It's called Experts Exports. And we pretty much give exposure to our users, and then we also have a lot of perks, right? So for us, for Experts Exports, this NFT is basketball related. Our users will appreciate it. Our users do basketball competitions, and they receive different perks. And in the future, there'll be other things that you can do with us, in terms of coming to our games, our local games. Obviously, we launched the app across the United States, so we're looking to expand there. So for us, it's more about access to different basketball opportunities as a fan or as a player.
Metta, I'm wondering, how did you get into crypto and I guess specifically the metaverse? Because, you've changed your name to Metta.
Mm-hmm. Well, initially when I changed my name to Metta, it was more from a faith, a Buddhist standpoint. It didn't have much to do with tech. But my company was called Metta Tech, and I thought that was pretty cool. But from there, I think it's something where I'm doing an app where really we want to help athletes become digital assets, right? So that's like using technology to monetize your brand for the most part. So now when you get the NFTs, it just makes perfect sense now, and when you talk about giving athletes a chance to be empowered. And different things like that, using Web3 and using and different incentives like the NFTs, I think it just makes perfect sense. You can put this all on one platform if you wanted to. So many cool things you could do. And like I said, I'm so focused on basketball and local basketball. I just think, using Web3 and the new technology, I think it makes perfect sense.
Can you talk a little bit more about? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Christine.
Well, it's interesting that Metta is actually, your Buddhist name. And I understand you're very spiritual. I wonder how that coincides with your interest in tech and your spirituality. And I guess in this case, honing in on NFTs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's true. When I first changed my name, I did have a lot of things in mind. But basketball is something that I really love. So I really want to try to take basketball to the next level, locally help people get exposure, whether you're a coach, a player, a future or aspiring general manager, even referees. Our platform is for the basketball enthusiasts, the basketball player, the basketball fans.
You just said something kind of interesting, and I would love to just hear you explain more when you talk about sort of like empowering athletes and like letting them monetize their brand more. Can you just explain like exactly how that works and, you know, how it worked before? Because I know that there's always stories about, I don't know, money problems in the NBA, especially for athletes. And so how, I'm just curious, like if you could just tease out for us, like what that means, like how this is helping, giving people more financial power.
Yeah, so at the X Sports platform, we're in partnership with, Blink Souls. And what we do is a basketball player can sign up, join the community, try to find a game or even create a game. And then if you're like in North Dakota or maybe even Buffalo and nobody knows you on this platform, you participate and then people will know you everywhere, especially the basketball community. And I think that's kind of, what's really important. We try to also have opportunities where we can do basketball games and build an audience for these players. If you go online and go on Instagram, you'll see a lot of basketball players with millions of followers. That's not in the NBA, right? And this is happening a lot. So we give them an opportunity to showcase their skills by engaging with the app locally and then get invited to our premium games. And then in our premium games, there's different opportunities, exposure to colleges or maybe pro. Also to play in our own cash games or also in our NFT games, where NFT has some value to it.
Also curious, why did you choose Solana?
Well, Solana, my partners chose Solana at Blink Souls. They have a relationship and it just made perfect sense. Obviously, we know a lot of other platforms out there that people are using, but my partners who were running the campaign for the NFTs, they chose Solana.
And again, just to backtrack to one other question, how did you get into crypto and how invested are you in crypto?
I mean, I really like the concept. I'm trying to really not follow any big trends. I want to use the technology to empower what I'm trying to do. So I feel like just having the opportunity to just play basketball here in America versus, having to always go overseas. A lot of our players here have to go overseas. How can we keep them here and then have a second and third level of professional basketball here, and different things like that. And I think with the opportunities to build an audience, whether it's purchasing NFTs or merchandise or even subscribing to your page, you have an opportunity to generate some revenue for yourself and give the people what they want.
But who introduced you to crypto in particular? Like, how did you get into crypto and your interest in crypto?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the first, I went to a conference in Miami, I think like maybe 5 years ago. Everybody was talking about this space, and obviously I remember when Bitcoin was like 15 cents or maybe even lower or something. And people were saying you should invest, you should get into this. And I didn't know what it meant. And then as you see, it's still here and it's still surviving. I was like, okay, I have to learn more about this space. So, I got a few blockchain advisors, whether it's NFTs or we're also going to be working on some tokens also. But I just reading, listening, talking to people over the last couple of years. And the main thing, it has something to do with what I do. It definitely adds value to what I'm trying to do for basketball players. So that's how I got involved.
All right, Metta. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you. And congratulations on this NFT series of sneakers. Very innovative stuff. That was Metta World-Peace, former NBA champion turned NFT creator. All right, let's check in with Crypto Twitter for our tweet of the day. And I wasn't going to bring attention to this, another Elon tweet, but Elona is trending on Twitter. So Chechny's lords have been name calling Elon Musk Elona for insulting Putin. Elon, of course, has embraced it, changing his profile handle to Elona Musk. And Crypto Twitter has gone wild with the memes. This one was approved by Elon's mom, May Musk, tweeting, "You are so pretty, Elona." Elon's just got to stop smoking joints, Emily.
He's always a part of every conversation. That's so.
Yeah. That's it for First Mover. Thank you, Emily. Lawrence had to tap out earlier, but thank you, Lawrence, as well, for joining us. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Meantime, check out The Hash at noon Eastern and 2:30 p.m. We'll live stream Fed Chair Jerome Powell's news conference, followed by All About Bitcoin. You're watching CoinDesk TV. Next up, stay tuned for the daily forecast to see what's happening in the Asia crypto markets.
Bitcoin has faced much criticism over its environmental impact, but could crypto mining actually inspire a move towards better use of green energy? Welcome to the Daily Forecast, March 16th, 2022. I'm Angie Lau, Editor-in-Chief of Forecast, covering all things blockchain. While the United Nations agrees that the world is making progress towards the use of renewable energy, it says more still needs to be done. Well, now one Australian Bitcoin mining company says the industry could help solve a problem that's been holding that transition back. We're going to take a look at that story, plus a whole lot more coming up. Let's get you up to speed from Asia to the world.
Join thousands of NFT traders who already start their day on CryptoSlam.
Well, let's kick off with a roundup of crypto crime busting action around the region, specifically China here. Let's start there. China's Consumer Rights Day saw a number of crypto-related crimes exposed. Now, this day is a major social media and TV event in the country, naming and shaming brands over consumer issues, as well as featuring consumer education campaigns. No matter how big or small, no firm is safe. Apple, by the way, was once a public target. Well, this year, crypto seemed to take center stage. In Shanghai, the Public Security Bureau, or PSB, says it broke up a crypto-based pyramid scheme with over 60,000 investors involved. Now, Chinese authorities say the organization collected over 100 million yuan, or roughly $15.6 million from investors. Meanwhile, in Beijing, a state-owned television station focused on rug pulls, when scammers pump up their token before disappearing with all the funds. Well, one man from the northeastern province of Heilongjiang said his wife had the rug pulled on her investment, with the perpetrators using China's crypto ban as an excuse. While a reporter who spied on the OSK Coins community said they saw the price of the coin drop 90% in a day after the rug was pulled. Not only that, the Beijing Banking and Insurance Regulator Bureau issued a warning against scams in the name of metaverse and blockchain games. The Bureau said the scams encourage college students to purchase crypto game props to invest in the project. So interesting to note here how heavily the crypto world was featured this year in an event that often sees big names singled out for criticism in China. Meanwhile, over in Kazakhstan, several notable figures have been busted for illegal crypto mining activities. Among them, Bolat Nazarbayev, the brother of former President Nursultan Nazarbayev, along with Alexander Klebanov, chairman of the Central Asian Electric Power Corporation, and Karat Itijamanov, who is listed by Forbes as Kazakhstan's 17th richest man. Now, the country's financial monitoring agency said operations at a total of 106 illegal crypto mines have been halted, with daily electricity consumption decreasing by 600 megawatts per hour as a result. That's a big deal for the Central Asian country, which has been dealing with power shortages after crypto miners flocked there following China's mining ban. You can find those stories and more at forecast.news. Now, speaking of the Bitcoin mining industry, could it offer a solution to a renewable energy dilemma? While Bitcoin is often criticized for its environmental impact, there are some within the industry who argue that it could help countries like Australia solve a riddle that's currently blocking the uptake of renewable energy. Forecast's Lachlan Keller investigates from Melbourne, Australia.
Australia is blessed with an abundance of renewable energy sources, particularly solar energy. However, it's also hamstrung by a mismatch between peak green energy generation and peak consumption hours. And that's left many Australian homeowners who installed rooftop solar panels frustrated at the plummeting price they receive for selling energy back to the grid. Not only that, the country's coal-powered thermal plants that are needed to supplement the grid at night operate 24 hours a day, exacerbating the daytime glut. And this is where Bitcoin mining could step in, with experts saying it could boost energy consumption at certain times of the day, thus creating a more stable demand level, which should boost the prices the suppliers of renewable energy are paid. And Australia's Iris Energy hopes that will encourage new investment in the sector.
If we bring in load that solves that, all of a sudden there's a market price signal to build out more renewables to retire that legacy fossil fuel generation, because you can't retire that legacy fossil fuel generation because there's not enough renewables in the mix.
Robert says their system only uses power when there is excess energy, and that the same philosophy applies to changing weather.
When the wind blows, the sun shines, we take that power, monetize it into Bitcoin. When there's a weather event, network outage, we throttle down the frequency of these chips, dynamically adjust our energy consumption.
However, one renewable energy expert told Forecast he isn't sure about the long-term viability of the idea.
From a macro perspective, anything that can help stabilize the grid is a positive thing. Will it actually have a meaningful stability outcome? I'm not sure. I think, to be honest, what we really need is storage. And I think that really is the way to sort out our grid long term.
The United Nations has a goal of making sustainable power available for everyone. And while that remains a long way off, we'll be keeping watch to see what part Bitcoin mining does or doesn't end up playing. For Forecast, I'm Lachlan Keller in Melbourne, Australia.
Warner Brothers is jumping in the deep end when it comes to NFTs, the studio announcing plans to release millions of DC Comics themed hybrid physical trading cards that are tied to redeemable NFTs. Prices range from $5 to $120 a pack. Will there be an audience? Johan Kalpu, VP, Chief Marketing Officer of CryptoSlam, a cross-chain NFT data tracker and aggregator, joins us now to discuss that and a whole lot more going on in the space. Great to have you with us, Johan.
Thanks for having me, Angie.
I don't know about you, but comic book fans around the world, how are they going to feel about this? This is probably the largest haul of NFTs yet. Warner Brothers coming out with a hybrid cards of over 150 superheroes, where a fan engagement platform will deliver the NFTs of your card. Given the popularity of DC Comics, what are the excitement levels going to be, you think?
If I know comic book fans, they're going to be very excited and they're going to spend a lot of money on them. It's just things that comic book lovers do. So I think it's perfect for NFTs.
Yeah, once upon a time you bought the card and then 20, 30 years later nostalgia reigns in and these are all the collectibles. Is there a vision for this type of marketplace with digital NFTs and digital collectibles?
So if you have an IP that's very legacy and older, but still very relevant, you can bring that to the NFT market and collectors are going to collect it. And digital collectibles have like a whole host of different benefits when compared to physical. You can't lose them in the fire. Your mom can't throw them away. There's just so many benefits to having them. Rarity, you can see the actual supply of them. Everything's transparent and on-chain, easily tradable. Marketplaces exist around the world. You can find a buyer in Switzerland, you can find a buyer in Jamaica. Whoever loves these comics can buy them very easily.
The company is also planning to issue limited edition cards based on the latest Batman movie. Reports are that we might even see AMC, the theater chain, minting an NFT of Robert Pattinson's Batman voice. What's changing about the digital collectibles space? How is it being reimagined right now? And what does it mean for the marketplace that you're monitoring over there at CryptoSlam?
We're seeing a flood of new projects coming on board using IP in different way. What's new about the existing and older brands coming in is that they're finally seeing the use of the technology, whereas only early adopters did before. And now you're seeing all of this new IP come on chain, and the validation of the technology is here. When big brands do come in, they do tend to make mistakes. We saw that with some of the earlier big brands that came in, and they had a little bit of different strategy after a few months. So I definitely do see them having different strategies, but it's a testing waters at this point in time. It's still early. And when people figure it out, when people figure out their product market fit, then I think we'll see a larger scale rollout to the mass audiences, which we are seeing now. So a lot of that has actually already taken place, but some big brands who are newer to the space and only coming in 2022 are still trying to find their bearings.
Speaking of rollouts, before I let you go, I got to ask you about this NFT vending machine situation popping up all over New York City. And the fun part, apparently, it's all a surprise. No one has any idea of what they're about to buy when they purchase an NFT. But what do you think of this? What do you think of this as the newest wave of NFT demand?
I think it's great for the younger crowd, the people who want to spend $1 to $5, the kid who can afford hardly anyone can afford a Bored Ape, but the kid that wants to get like $1 to $5 NFTs, that's perfect for them. That's a new person in the economy. That's a new person understanding NFTs. That's a new person appreciating digital collectibles. So I think it's a great idea.
And that's what it's all about when it comes to this space: innovation and also mass adoption. It is the holy grail, as they say. Johan, really appreciate your insights today.
Thanks, Angie. Pleasure.
Well, speaking of NFTs, Forecast is putting the final finishing touches on Forecast's State of NFTs report. We're crunching the numbers, and we will bring you the stories behind the headlines. What's driving adoption? What's the next use case you haven't heard of yet? And how is Asia's uptake in NFTs creating a hotbed for opportunity for both developers and everyday people? Stay tuned. We'll have more for you right here and on Forecast News. And that's the Daily Forecast, bringing you everything you need to know about blockchain world from our vantage point right here in Asia. I'm Forecast Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Until the next time.